The time for small thinking is over, the time for trivial fights is behind us. Trump strikes a new presidential tone as he addresses Congress, but tells them bluntly to reform the tax code and repeal Obamacare. President Donald Trump took his first mission-critical trip down Pennsylvania Avenue on Tuesday to address a joint session of Congress, telling his political opponents that the time for small thinking is over, the time for trivial fights is behind us. We just need the courage to share the dreams that fill our hearts, the bravery to express the hopes that stir our souls, and the confidence to turn those hopes and dreams to action, he said. From now on, America will be empowered by our aspirations, not burdened by our fears. Trump started his speech with a claim on the role of political peacemaker, saying he wanted to bring Americans who voted for him together with those who didn't. I am here tonight to deliver a message of unity and strength, and it is a message deeply delivered from my heart, he said. That followed a stunning condemnation of anti-Semitism and other hatred. Trump declared that the close of Black History Month led him to remember our nation's path toward civil rights and the work that still remains. Recent threats targeting Jewish community centers and vandalism of Jewish cemeteries, as well as last week's shooting in Kansas City, remind us that while we may be a nation divided on policies, we are a country that stands united in condemning hate and evil in all its forms. Some of Trump's other rhetoric was full of hopeful Canada-esque cloft, notable after 4 contentious weeks marking the beginning of the president's Washington Odyssey. Think of the marvels we can achieve, Trump urged, speaking of his still incubating science reform proposals, if we simply set free the dreams of our people. Cures to illnesses that have always plagued us are not too much to hope. As Trump made appeals for bipartisan cooperation, it's impossible to predict how receptive Democrats were. Some of them laughed out loud when the president bragged that he has begun to drain the swamp of government corruption. Others gasped in audible disbelief when he announced the formation of a government department to assist victims of illegal immigrant criminals. At least one hissed when he announced that the time for trivial fights is behind us. They sat, arms folded, as he rattled off a laundry list of his supporters' red meat slogans, all with the usual panache. We will soon begin the construction of a Great Wall along our southern border, he said. It will be started ahead of schedule and, when finished, it will be a very effective weapon against drugs and crime. And he doubled down on efforts to pause admissions to the U.S. from 7 Muslim-majority nations where limited screening capacity has left question marks next to countless incoming travelers. It is not compassionate, but reckless, to allow uncontrolled entry from places where proper vetting cannot occur, he said. Democrats have already pilloried Trump through days of tumult as his White House endured an error-ridden rollout of his travel ban order. They descended into schadenfreude as the investigative saga of his campaign's alleged Moscow ties took on new and ever more threatening forms. They mocked the Trump administration's leak-prone inner circle. They obstructed the confirmation calendar of his cabinet secretaries. They clobbered the first outline of the president's budget priorities. They were joined in that by some key Republicans. On Tuesday they joined the GOP in applauding Trump's condemnation of the ISIS terror army as a network of lawless savages that have slaughtered Muslims and Christians, and men, women, and children of all faiths and beliefs. There was no such bipartisan appreciation when the president boomed the words radical Islamic terrorism. Trump called on Tuesday for Congress to increase funding for our veterans, pass historic tax reform for middle-class Americans, make good on his campaign pledge to repeal and replace Obamacare, help soften the financial burden of child care, and help ensure new parents have paid family leave. His speech also included a demand that the government invest in women's health and promote clean air and clean water and rebuild our military infrastructure. And Trump boasted that by finally enforcing our immigration laws, we will raise wages, help the unemployed, save billions of dollars, and make our communities safer for everyone. More members of Congress, including a nearly full complement of Democrats, heard it in person than anything Trump had said previously. Following a rush of Democratic boycotts of his January 20 inauguration, only one, Representative Maxine Waters of California, announced that she would purposely skip Tuesday's speech. The far-left partisan reportedly said during a Democratic caucus meeting that any lawmaker who can't sit still shouldn't go. Others, including New York Democratic Representative Eliot Engel, said they would attend but go out of their way to avoid shaking Trump's hand, something few members of Congress get close enough to do. Texas Democrat Sheila Jackson Lee, known for hugging an aisle seat every time President Barack Obama delivered a State of the Union speech, the better to be seen on TV shaking his hand, said through a spokesman that she didn't plan to repeat the effort. New Jersey Representative Bill Pascrell, another Democrat, was also fond of sitting on the aisle so he could share a few words with Obama once a year. But as Trump turned the page and builds his own relationship with Congress, Pascrell told Fox News, "I will not take an aisle seat." Trump entered the House chamber to raucous cheers from the GOP and polite claps from Democrats. He pumped a fist, straightened his blue and white striped tie, and acknowledged more than 5 minutes of sustained applause. Another ovation came after House Speaker Paul Ryan pounded a ceremonial gavel and introduced him. The occasion of the president's first speech before the entire federal legislature and most of his cabinet, one member always stays away as a designated survivor in case of the unthinkable, is a State of the Union address in all but name. On Tuesday that honor went to Veterans Administration Secretary David Shulkin. Trump's main job Tuesday and in the days that follow is to give his administration a booster shot of enthusiasm. Many of the key issues in the president's stable, all campaign rally standards, had lost their luster in the corrosive era of government. His once rock-solid pledge to begin repealing and replacing Obamacare on the first day of his presidency ran into the buzzsaw of internal Republican politics, with warring factions disagreeing about whether the two halves of the promise need to happen simultaneously. Trump's prepared remarks include a firm marker, however, demanding reforms that expand choice, increase access, lower costs, and at the same time provide better health care. Mandating every American to buy government-approved health insurance was never the right solution for America, Trump said. The way to make health insurance available to everyone is to lower the cost of health insurance, and that is what we will do. Trump once vowed to rebuild America's decimated military, but the reality of cutting $54 billion per year from domestic spending to pay for it has drawn jaundiced stares on Capitol Hill from both sides of the aisle. Even his signature issue, illegal immigration, has seen the Trumpian bravado quieted into a quietly whispered cascade of maybes. On Tuesday afternoon, multiple sources in a lunch meeting the president held with television anchors said he made an overture to Democrats about an immigration reform proposal. "The time is right for an immigration bill as long as there is compromise on both sides," he reportedly said. Those words hung in the Washington air for hours on Tuesday as pundits and lawmakers alike wondered if Trump was ready to embrace the kind of Gang of Eight compromise he mocked during the Republican primary season. A law offering some illegal immigrants a pathway to legal status, or even citizenship, was the sort of sausage-making that made Marco Rubio's path to the White House impossibly fraught. His first move may be to lower the bar for so-called dreamers, people illegally brought to the U.S. years ago when they were children. Trump called their situation very, very difficult during a press conference just a dozen days ago. "To me, it's one of the most difficult subjects I have because you have these incredible kids, they were brought in here in such a way. It's a very, very tough subject," he said, while emphasizing that some of them have turned criminal and should be deported. The president's campaign persona emphasized a one-size-fits-all approach, saying last August that every illegal immigrant would have to return home and apply for re-entry like everybody else, as part of his bid to break the cycle of amnesty and illegal immigration. The night's 60-minute speech was interrupted by 94 separate moments of applause. There is a long tradition of the party out-of-party sitting out applause lines thrown out at them by the president during a speech they are forced to watch on camera. Democrats on Tuesday took their opposition to a new level. When the president got announced and entered the chamber, dozens of Democrats stood, but kept blank expressions on their faces and refrained from clapping. Even when Trump made non-controversial statements about lowering prescription drug costs, many Democrats sat on their hands. there were a few holdovers from the traditional theater that comes with the speech. When First Lady Melania Trump first entered the chamber, after an awkward interlude where she stood without waving, the chamber erupted into a big round of applause with approving yells.